Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. So this week, it is all about the money, and it's lots of money, starting with Red Dead Redemption 2, and then Red Hat Linux. And so for anybody who's even remotely familiar with games, they probably heard of Grand Theft Auto 5, and they probably heard of the company behind that, Rockstar, and living up to their name, they produced Rockstar results for the release of Red Dead Redemption 2 by making sales of $725 million in its first 3 days of release. Now that's absolutely mind-blowing, and it's second only to another Rockstar game, Grand Theft Auto 5, which sold $1 billion worth of copies in its first 3 days, and that was years ago. And even right now, the Grand Theft Auto 5 online play is still making around $100 million monthly, which is absolutely staggering if you actually think about that. Now, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone in the gaming industry or even the business industry that Red Dead Redemption 2 would do well. But for it to do over $720 million in its first 3 days, I even think Rockstar was actually surprised by that. And as a matter of fact, people are estimating that it could hit 20 million copies by December, and basically it's going to earn a profit. And so at least this analyst is saying that it costs over $500 million to create Red Dead Redemption 2 in its 8 years of development, and it's definitely going to make more than that by the time December rolls around. So they're saying $860 million. That's what they're guesstimating that it will earn by December. And so yeah, I don't think Rockstar has anything to worry about here. And then as they release more of their online play and whatever is released on the PC and whatever other additions that they add, whether it's DLC or microtransactions, Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to make a lot of money for many, many years to come, much like Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, I do have to give a lot of praise to Red Dead Redemption 2 and specifically the team at Rockstar, because this is one of the few companies that actually not only make gamers happy with producing absolutely stellar games, but at the same time making the people in the whole business side of it happy as well. It's not simply just another rehash of a series, just basically a forgettable copy of last year with slight improvements. It actually has a lot for gamers to love. And the last time that I've actually played a Rockstar game, it is very memorable. And considering this game has been in development so long, and there was definitely controversy over how much work was put into this, it all shows whenever people play it. I've seen a lot of reviews on this. Besides the fact that it just looks amazing, it gives gamers what they want. It really puts gamers in a place where they feel like they're in a different world. They grow to love the characters, even the horse themselves. And they introduce elements in their games that will give it a lot of longevity. And so, yeah, hats off to Rockstar. And, all the gamers who actually get to play this. I don't have a modern game system, and obviously this isn't available on PC. I couldn't play it anyway because I run Linux. But it's great to know that there's still some amazing games that are being produced, and at the same time, it's actually making money. So that means that it sends a signal to some other bigger companies, not naming names, but produce really great games, and you're gonna make more money out of it. And so that's for the gaming news. And now we get to another big money news, and it's probably the biggest of all, and that is IBM is acquiring Red Hat Linux for $34 billion. Yeah, $34 billion. That's absolutely insane. And if I'm not mistaken, that is the largest ever paid for a software company, as far as I know, in history right now, and especially for an open source software company. Now, this could actually be seen from many, many different angles. It could be seen from the open source community, which is probably one of the biggest places a lot of people are going to point to, and especially if you're the type of person who really digs open source versus proprietary. And it could also be seen from the business world, which is kind of where I see things. And this is a huge shift, because I think as anybody who knows, who's actually been keeping up with open source, Linux, Red Hat, at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's not really about whether or not it's open source or proprietary, because there's a lot of open source projects out there. There's a lot of proprietary projects out there. There's a lot of software out there, but very few get to these levels. And Red Hat was not only one of the very first companies to adopt Linux, but they were really the first to see the business opportunities with it. They were the first company to really, push the fact that with an open source technology, you could actually be profitable, and this could actually be valuable to not only businesses, but the most important people is the end consumer. Whether they are other businesses or other clients or just the consumer end, that's the vision that Red Hat saw. And I really think if it wasn't for Red Hat Linux, Linux as a whole wouldn't be where it is today. And I think everybody knows about Linux, Linus Torvalds creating the kernel and combining that with Richard Stallman and the GNU and GPL portion. That's what we have today as the Linux operating system, which a lot of people are learning more and more about. And I think timing wise, this made sense. Open source, specifically Linux, has been around for, since 1991. But if you think about the history of it and it getting to this point, it's still fairly young. And Linux is everywhere, and a lot of the reasons why Linux is as popular as it is today is because there was a lot of money pumped into it from much bigger businesses like IBM, like Google, like Amazon, like Facebook, like Microsoft. Surprisingly, Microsoft is now a huge proponent of open source. Not because they specifically say, hey, we love open source. It's because, like all these other companies and businesses, it makes sense. There is a monetary reason there, but at the same time, it's not just about the money, because once again, it has to produce value for their end consumers. Just think about Android, right? That has the Linux kernel in it. And so if it didn't produce some type of value for the end consumer, it wouldn't matter how cool the technology is. And IBM is doing this for a reason, because right now they have been for years just lagging behind other companies like Amazon, like Microsoft, like Google, even Facebook. They're just way far ahead, and so it needed to do something about that. And IBM is like third when it comes to cloud services. They're behind Amazon and Microsoft. And so this is a big move, because whenever you look at Microsoft's Azure cloud services, the majority of it on there is running Linux virtual machines, and most of them is Red Hat. So 40% of it runs Linux virtual machines as of 2017, and I think the last numbers were like over 50% from in 2018. So there is a huge shift to open source, and this is from every technology company. And I wouldn't say shift, because these companies have been using like open source technology, specifically Linux, for a long time now. Amazon Web Services runs on Ubuntu servers. And so, yeah, this is a big thing in many different ways. And I really feel it's only going to push Linux and open source even further. And, even though we might hope that it's going to remain completely open source, the reality is, these companies are going to embed their own proprietary parts as well, because, in the end of the day, that's how the real world works. You're going to have a combination of both open source and proprietary. And hopefully Red Hat, they will be able to maintain as much of their open source culture as much as possible, because, they are pretty much the leaders in that area. And so we'll see what happens here. But I myself thinks that this is a great thing, and I do want to congratulate Red Hat and everybody who works for that company, because you have to think about it. Before them and even after them, Red Hat was the first open source company to reach $1 billion in sales, and now they're actually worth $34 billion. And obviously this is going to be paid over time, and so this is, I think, a really good thing for the long term. And at the same time, it might also give some competition against Microsoft, who is heavily using open source now. But for people who might not like Microsoft, this might put a little slowdown on their dominance of open source from a proprietary company. And so that is it for the news today with all the money talk. If you had any thoughts on this, whether it is Red Redemption 2 or Red Hat Linux, sure leave that in the comments area below. And as always, if you did get value out of these episodes, sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hey geeks, if you are a creative geek like me and you wanted to learn how to create content on YouTube and other places on the internet, then check out my Gold Content Creators Group, where you'll get access to 30 videos plus additional content for all the creative geeks out there. And the best part of it is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and sign up for my Gold Content Creators Group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, If you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.